Good evening and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Parker Hagan. I'm so delighted to be here with you yet another Tuesday. I have my co host.
And good evening, and what a wonderful Tuesday that it is, right in the beginning of spring, and we're ready to spring forth with some great hot topic discussion.
Yes, I'm so excited. So much is going on in the world today. We need to be uplifted, we're motivated and inspired. And my guest tonight will do exactly that, Dr. J.
Well, you know what? I agree with you. We need inspiration. We need to be uplifted. And we need to know that, you know what? That we don't have to be stuck where we are, that sometimes change is a matter of a decision to move forth. And I often say that we may not can change our destiny overnight, but we can change our direction overnight. And so decisions happen. So we're excited because we see where change and decision can translate one from the hood to the upper grounds of life.
Indeed. Deonte Atkins is our special guest today, and he is a motivational speaker. He's an author and he's an entertainer. And his stage name is David Pablo. And I'm so excited to have Mr. Dante Atkins. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Miss Valerie?
I'm well. I'm so excited. I met you at the Les Brown Master the Mic event, and your story inspired me. And I said, this is a platform that I want greatness to be on. So that's why I invited you to come on the show and share with the audience because there's so many people that are stuck in life. They don't know what they're doing presently or where they want to go. They have a problem defining purpose. They have a problem defining who they are and whose they are. So they find themselves stuck in life.
Yes.
And so that's why I said, I want you to come on because you talk about your hood life, you live that gangster life, but then something happened. So I want you to share with the audience what was the defining moment in your life that caused you to change the narrative of your life?
Well, I would say growing up in the hood, it gives you a few defining moments. But however, I would say one of the first I can really think of is a time when I was with a guy who was my mentor. He was a music artist by the name of Swift D. He was very well liked in the hood. And one day we were driving in the car, and I was just telling him like how I wanted to inspire my little brother to be great, how I wanted to inspire my little brother who's 6 years younger than me to go pursue his dreams in life and be in the NBA and all that. And at the time, I was like 14, and I was 13, and Swift in the middle of the street stopped the car, and he just looked at me and he said, "Man, how are you gonna sit here and come up and plan somebody else's destiny and future, and you can still do it?" He like, "Why you ain't doing it?" And that was for me. I say that was a defining moment that helped me understand that anything is possible because up until that time, I felt like for me, it was too late. And I was only 14. You know what I mean? It's like
Wow.
it's like, how is it too late for me at 14? But Swift, seeing him pursuing his dream, even if it was just to be a rapper or something, you know what I mean? A lot of people will look at that as not pursuing the dream because they want to be a rapper. But watching him with his passion, with his dedication, with his getting up, going to the studio. And then when he told me, you can be anything you want, I realized I can. So that was a defining moment for me to understand that. I like the way that Mr. Thicker said, and it's Thicklin, correct?
Right.
Mr. Thicklin said, he said, we can't change overnight, but we can change our direction. And I like that because, you know, one of the big sayings that stick in my mind is an airplane. An airplane could be on a runway, and all it takes is to change its tire a little bit this way, and it'll take it from being in California to being in Alaska. You know what I mean? So all you have to do is change your direction. And that moment in that car helped me change my direction to say, you know what, instead of worrying about everybody else accomplishing their dreams, let me come up with some of my own.
Okay, so you
Awesome.
grew up in Michigan,
Yes, ma'am.
and when you were working with Swift Beats, where was he at?
He was in Michigan as well. God do some amazing things. People say he work in mysterious ways. I say miraculous ways. God put this piece of the puzzle in my life without me even knowing how significant it'd be. Swift ended up living across the street from me in the house directly across the street from me.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Now, it had to be something about him that also inspired you to want to be more, or something that you looked at and you saw inside of him that made you have a hunger. I think my question is almost like his question. Why do you think you overlooked yourself and only saw that as being something that you want to be able to pass on to your younger sibling?
I would answer that by saying, unfortunately, in the hood, a lot of the times, and it's to answer both of those questions in one, media and what you see on TV and what you see portrayed, they one what made him cool to me is because he had what I thought that you're supposed to have: the nice
Mm-hmm.
cars, the girls coming around, smoking all the time, things like that. You know what I mean? So that's what drew me to him, attracted me to say I want to be like that. Just like young kids when they see the nice cars, they don't even know who in it,
Right.
but they say that's my car. You know what I mean? So to see him with the tour buses pull up and the famous athletes coming to his house when they come to town, that's what drew me to him. But I would say what prevented me from seeing something in myself before that is because, again, the media teach you to want what you don't have. And at that time, because of the circumstances of my mom working two jobs, of the school I went to, it made me feel like I didn't have these things. So why ever think I can get these things? You know what I mean?
Mm,
And
Wow.
it makes it even not saying worse, but it makes it even a tougher situation when the public school systems teach you. Like, I remember a significant moment in my life when I was younger, and my teacher, my science teacher named Mrs. Netta, she was giving us a lecture about some things and stuff, and she said that I said I'm very opinionated, so I told her, I said, I don't see why we learning this, right? And she said, well, the main reason for you to learn this is so you can get a good trade, to get a good job, and work in General Motors. And I'm like, so you telling me, because now again, the people I know, my grandfather, the people I know that define my success did work at General Motors, right?
Mhm.
Because again, like we spoke of off camera, a lot of people migrated from the South for General Motors. So now in my mind, I'm like, you're telling me this whole, I'm dedicating my younger years, my life right now, to just go work in General Motors. You know what I mean? So seeing Swift helped me understand he didn't work in General Motors. He didn't, you know what I mean? He
Right.
lived the life he wanted to. So that's what drew me to him. And by thinking I had to work at General Motors is what made me feel like I didn't have no other vision before I met him.
Wow.
You know,
And
it's so interesting that you took that, you adapted that mindset, that your family from generation to generation adapted that mindset that, okay, your dream job is to work at GM or Ford because that was the main thing. And because you're from Michigan, either that or you sing, you are Motown. So those are the three things you got going for you: Motown, GM, and Ford.
Yep.
So you chose the music end of it
Well,
that you wanted to.
honestly, not to cut you off. What Swift taught me, he taught me to pursue the business end of it. So Swift
Wow.
sparked my passion for I can be great and be a mogul in business. Swift just did, we did the, like, for even me, when I started my artistry in music, it's just because I had a passion of music, because like the culture, you know what I mean, I did. But it was because music was a product that I can create a business around. So Swift taught me, just like, and I mean, just being real on a podcast coming from the hood, with him selling weed in the hood, you know what I mean? The
Hmm.
entrepreneur spirit of what he did taught me, don't go work for somebody else. Find a product, find a skill, find a service, and you build your own worth.
And you know,
wow.
this is what we always tell people, from this platform to try and motivate and inspire. What's in your hand? Your lives are what your thoughts create. So what are you thinking about daily? And just don't think about it, do it, be about it, create your own streams of income. My granddaughter, uh, Destiny, reached out to me a couple of days ago and she was like, Nana, can you send me some money? I don't know what's going on with my account. Well, what's going on with your account is you spending too much money. You need to get a job. And she's like, well, I don't think I'm supposed to work for nobody, Nana. I think I want to be like you. Well, I worked for people until I became me. You
Absolutely.
Right.
have to start somewhere. I had a job. And granted, my granddaughter has always had that entrepreneurial spirit since she was like 5 years old. When I was doing my books, I sold over 15,000 copies of From the Soul of a Woman, my first book. I guarantee you she probably sold 1,000 of them. She was like, "You need to buy my Nana's book. It's about her life being in domestic violence." And she would tell the whole story. And then she would say, "And she has a foundation, the Soul of a Woman Foundation. You can support her like this." So she always had that entrepreneur spirit. She's in college now. And still, she they have this thing called candy grapes. I don't
Mhm.
know what it is, but they have this product called candy grapes that they make. Well, anyway, she makes it. And during Valentine's, she made this little basket presentation and sold it to kids on campus. She made over $500
Mm,
in
Great.
1 week selling
mm,
candy grapes. So, what's in your hand? What do you think about? If our lives are what our thoughts create,
mhm.
that means we need to be creating, we need to be thinking about the
Absolutely.
next level of greatness. And you've done exactly that. So, continue walking us through you being 14, being with a successful entrepreneur and entertainer, but you wanted your own mark. What did that look like for you? Because you became a young father during that time as well, correct?
Yep. 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 I did. Well, so around that same time, and again, God do things for some crazy reasons. So around that time, I end up, me and my mother, I wasn't getting along with her boyfriend at the time. I felt that she was choosing him over me. So at that time, her and I had a disagreement, and she told me, "Well, if you don't want to live here, get out." So me being 14, I said, "Okay, I'm out." Right. So I went and I moved with my then girlfriend, who was 13 at the time. So her mother was
Oh, wait, stop. So you 14, she 13, her parents let you move in the house.
her yeah, yeah. And see, it's a crazy part about that. See, I thank God because my mother was never on drugs besides marijuana or whatever. Her mother was on harder drugs. You know what I mean? Her mother fell victim to the system. So
Okay.
at the time, her mother let me stay there because I knew people that could get her drugs. So you know what I mean? It was
Okay.
yeah. So, and needless to say, you put a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old in the house together, I didn't even know what that stuff did, but I found out when her belly started growing. so, so that's at that time I had she ended up getting pregnant. Now the funny story about that is I talked to Swift about that. You know what I mean? I said, man, I got a baby on the way. And he just at the time we were planning to get an abortion because but God had other plans. So what happened was we went to the abortion clinic once we found out she was pregnant, and they told us after the ultrasound she was 4 months pregnant. Now what that meant was it would cost instead of $1,200, $4,000 to get the abortion, right? So I'm like, we walk out the clinic. I remember like it was yesterday. We walk out and I look at her. I said, don't worry about it. I'm gonna do whatever we got to do to get this taken care of. And she said, it's okay. My daddy gonna take care of it, right? So I don't know why her daddy was on drugs too, right? So at the time I didn't know that. I'm like, okay. So 2 months pass, right? And nothing happens. My sister happened to have a baby and go on labor around the same time. So when my sister had the baby, I asked her for some prenatal pills, and the nurse overheard me. She was like, "Look, y'all need to get a checkup." So long story short, we went to get a checkup. Kind of find out 2 months later, at that time, she was just 3 months pregnant. So when we went in there the first time, she was only a month pregnant, but now she really is 3 months pregnant, right? But God wanted me to have that child because having my daughter is what really gave me my inspiration towards life. You know what I mean? Because then once I talked to Swift, it took a whole new spin on that talk he and I had about don't imagine a future for your little brother when you should imagine for yourself. Because now I'm like, I got a daughter on the way. So I'm talking to him. I'm like, I'm about to be 15. I'm like, when I turn 25, my daughter will be 10. And I'm like, either I could be coaching her from an office, a business desk, from a jail cell, or in a
Yeah.
cat. You know what I mean? And at that moment, me and Swift looked at each other and we like, bro, what's the defining factor? And again, what direction you take from today? You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So like, had God not created that situation where we thought my child's mother was further ahead, we would have had an abortion. Who knows where I would have been had I not had my daughter?
Wow.
Wow.
Now that had to be a lot on you, being a young man. All these things coming you, at one time. Your own situation with your own mother, then the situation there with this young lady. She becomes pregnant, and just so much there, And when you're in a situation like that, time just look like it does that. I mean, it passed you by. Don't look like you have the time to really make those decisions and see them through.
Mhm.
But this is a case where well, literally, you grew up almost by default because you recognized the fact things was happening so quick, and that you had to make some decisions. And those decisions, we talk about necessity being the mother of inventions. Well, definitely adversity introduces a man or a woman to themselves. And it sounded like to me you had a reintroduction and you had a rebirthing from that situation.
Absolutely. I like the way you put that. Absolutely. Really, yeah. From the birth of my daughter, I had a rebirthing of myself. I became a father
Absolutely.
before I had an opportunity to become a man.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
There's a
So
lot there
go ahead,
because
Dr.
we talk about hood. Oftentimes we hear the connotation hood, and we like to think of it, as a section of town and upbringing in a prescribed neighborhood, but we go through hoods in many ways. We come into this world, as males, we come into this world, we come into as a child. So we have our childhood, and
Yeah,
then we have our boyhood. And from
absolutely.
our boyhood, the progression should be the fact that we would grow into being a man and then husband. But sometimes we end up skipping those steps by way of, of things happening, and we find ourselves in fatherhood.
Uh-huh.
And fatherhood is a big step
Uh-huh.
because now I've got to be responsible for someone else, when the reality is I'm not even confident that I'm responsible for myself.
Absolutely, absolutely. I like the way you put that. That's and I often use the analogy of relationships, how
Mhm.
ships, no matter what ship you on, is meant to get you to a destination. But I like
Exactly.
you say that as well with the fatherhood and hood. You know what I mean? It's hoods within everybody. And one of
Mhm.
the another point I want to touch on is like you were saying, like I'm not the only person that went through situations like this. Like for me, when I tell the stories to people who haven't went through this, they say, oh my goodness, 14, 15, 13 having a baby. But me being in that, I was in the Young Fathers program with dudes who were 12 having babies. You know what I mean?
what?
Exactly.
Serious. Yeah.
Wow.
So to that is like I say, an interest. And I was in the program with young guys that was having babies that wasn't from the necessary hood, what we would describe as a hood, ones that was privileged, but just didn't have the right upbringing, so they still had to go through fatherhood. So I do very much like that analogy, and that's very true because just to go back on me not being the only one, sometimes they I remember being in Young Fathers program, and the guy in there, he always come in and he be like, people think they special, but you're not special. Everybody got problems, right? But I always change that in my head. I'm like, nah, I'd rather say you are special, but so is everybody else. You get what I'm saying? Like we all are special. Don't think that you're not special, so you don't have an advantage. We all are special, so you don't have an advantage, but your advantage can be what you choose to do with your gifts of being special.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Absolutely. Since you mentioned being in a class with 12, 13-year-old having children, I remember doing a seminar in Chicago, and there was 8, 9, and 10-year-old girls having babies,
yes.
and some of them were on their second one. I can't believe I forgot that. And I was like, why? I mean, how did this happen? I told them, my story of success, going through the domestic violence and being able to start my life over again and so on and so forth. And I asked her, I said, you're so young. You're 9 years old. Why would you put yourself in a position to have a baby? Number one, they weren't taught. Number two, they were in the ghetto, so to speak. Their parents was on drugs. Number three, they said they wanted someone to love them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They knew if they had a baby, the baby would love them unconditionally.
You just gave me an
And
opinion.
yeah, that the baby would love them. And so that caused a shift in me because of the fact that, we put labels on people, and we uh, count them out because of things that they went through, when it's actually things that they're going to grow through.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But the crazy part about that, not that I think it's kind of funny, but I think we had this one VCR in my house when I was growing up. And when I used to get in trouble, my mom used to make us stay stuck in the house. So I watched this movie Coming to America, right? I watched Coming to America over and over and over. So watching the part where he went out and his father took him out and they had that jungle in his house and he was like, "Hello, Babu," and all that. That made me want to get that, right? So
Right.
what I'm saying is like what I think part really saved me is just having the vision and believing that you know what I see my life as a movie after that point. You know what I mean? Everything that went through and everything negative, having a baby at a young age, going through the stuff I went through with the legal system, everything, right? I said this is a movie, and what movie is good? Even in Coming to America, you had the beginning, which was nice and nice. Then you had the sad part where he was chasing a woman. Then you had the part where he married her. So I always look forward to marrying my success of life. So everything else wasn't bad. That's what kept me making it through the bad stuff. I'm like, you know what? This movie gonna be good.
Wow. So during this process, you actually didn't make it in the entertainment field. So how did that come into fruition?
It came in well before. See, I had three goals when I was growing up. I used to sit and I used to daydream. Right, once I learned the power of vision, I used to
Oh, the
daydream.
power of a dream.
The power of a dream. I'm telling you. So I used to sit on this little stool in my driveway and look at the sky. And I visioned three things. You know, I wanted to, from watching Coming to America, I wanted to become an engineer because I wanted to learn how my grandfather, in our blood, we got this MacGyver spirit where we don't want to just buy.
Mhm.
I want to build. We builders. So I started wondering how am I going to build it? I want to be an engineer. But then I said, okay, but I want to be a rapper too because I'm looking across the street at Swift in this car while I'm looking at the sky. Imagine being an engineer. I see this lifestyle, so I say I want to be a rapper too, right? And then I say, well, but I want to be a mogul. So what I had to do was put that in steps in my head. I said, okay, well, I don't see myself going from being a rapper to an engineer, and it takes 4 years going to school to be an engineer. So I might as well do that first, become an engineer, then I can become the rapper. And then after being a rapper, I can go be a businessman by having business within rap and then engineering, right? So before I became the rapper, what I did was God bless me, but at that time when I had my daughter, I was already 3 years behind on school. I flunked kindergarten, but my mama held me back on kindergarten. I failed seventh grade because I was behind, and she gave me an opportunity to either go on a cruise because she already paid for it or do summer school. Needless to say, with a 12-year-old pick. And then so, so I end up going to school. So I got my GED at 16 and went straight to college. I went to a community college, right? So at this time, my family looking at me like I've always been in school in Tay, not possible. But then when I went to college, it was a ball game, different change, right? So once I went to college, I was able to graduate and get my associate's degree in design engineering, right? So,
Mhm.
but a whole another story for a different day. My first day of college, I caught my first case. First time I ever been in handcuffs. First time I ever got, and it was like the movies. It made me sad. They make movies off this stuff now, but the police actually came into the hood, introduced the lifestyle, and tempted me with some stuff that I didn't even touch, and gave me a case off of it. And to this day, I still got.
Wow.
You know what I
Wow.
mean? But now they make movies off what they do to the kids in the hood, and we watch it as entertainment. But they tell
Mm.
the truth about what the DA did. So it lost. So going back to when I went to college. So after I got my degree, I got a job being a welder. I'm a welder because I knew that I wanted when I to finish school, you had to do they call these electives, right? And everybody
Mhm.
else was taking electives to hurry up and get themselves through it. They was taking stuff easy, art and all that. I chose my elective to be welding because I knew that I can get a job off of that skill. You know what I mean? And I've always knew, like Swift told me, better yourself, get a skill, get a work. So they gave me
Mhm.
work. So then I started welding. Then after I started welding, that taught me how to read blueprints, right? So to speed this up,
Wow.
yeah, so I was literally in the hood, leaving, going from my mama's house with a daughter at this time. I would get up in the morning. I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, go to class, be to class by 8 o'clock. I would do my schoolwork at my community college, leave there at 2 o'clock, get home, try to make sure I get my little system together. Then I did a carpool service too, picking up four dudes that worked at the plant I worked at in Holly, Michigan. So I would leave at 2:30 to go pick them guys up, drive an hour away to Holly, Michigan to work second shift. I would work from I believe it was like 5 to midnight or 1 or something, whatever. So I would do that, leave there, get home about 1 or 2 o'clock, covered in soot because I'm welding, I'm MIG welding, getting burnt with all that. So I would get home, take a shower, wake up, do it again. And I did this for 2 years, getting my associate's degree. Right now, again, part of the reason why I did this and I was going so hard is because during this whole time I got a case from
Mhm.
being arrested my first day of college. So that was another way God kept my butt focused because when I caught that case, it's like, look, bro, either you finna be in jail or you gonna be in the class. So it was no more leaving class. It was be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I did all that and I kept myself busy. And then as I was doing that, we the company, the way they was doing in Michigan was they would hire you for 90 or 89 days and fire you right before you got to your 90 day. So you don't got to
Right.
get fired on.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah, so they did this 3 times, right? And on the
Yeah,
fourth,
I did a lot of affirmative action jobs.
oh, okay. So on the fourth time of doing this, I started to remember my conversation with Swift. Now by this time, Swift had passed away, and the way that Swift died was some crazy stuff. They say he killed himself, but I know he didn't. I know the way it happened. It was some crazy stuff, but Swift had passed away. So by this time, I remember my conversation with him, and I remember how I told him I was going to pursue music. So I started to pursue
Mhm.
music. I was like, you know what? I took when they let me go that third time. I'm like, I got 35 days for they hire us back. In this 35 days, I'm finna make a whole mixtape. So, my mother husband at the time, he was a dude. He was cool. He helped me get a studio in my basement. He just gave me like $500. We got this little recording equipment, and I got a studio. I made a song. People started liking it, and then it ended up splashing me to do a show with Lil Wayne. Right now, with me remember my entrepreneurial, what I did was when I did the show with Lil Wayne, I created my merch off of that too. I just didn't do the show because I wasn't getting paid for the show. So what I did was came up with this little logo. I had a gold tooth at the time, so I made the logo dude with a gold tooth and diamonds. And then I sold the merch, and people started knowing me in the hood more for the merch, and then that helped springboard me into my working with different people in artistry. So that's what got me into music.
Oh, that is just such an incredible story of resiliency because so many people they give up in the middle of the struggle because they can't see the end. And I was telling them, keep pressing forward because, they always like this pity party. Oh, me, look at what's happening to me. I'm never going to make it to the end. Well, you won't make it to the end if you keep that mindset. So you have to keep on affirming yourself and affirming those dreams that you have. It's just like going over the George Washington Bridge. You get halfway there and say, "Oh man, I'm not going all the way. I'm tired. I'm turning around. I'm going back." Well, if you went halfway across, if you turn around, you still going to hold the same distance that you came to got there. Where all you have to do is keep moving forward. But
Absolutely.
people lose sight of the vision because they lose sight of the possibilities.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad that you are a sounding a mouthpiece for so many individuals, young and old, because there's so many people that still haven't found their space, still haven't found their purpose because they haven't set their goals, their vision on anything to walk towards.
Mm-hmm.
So, your young father,
Mm-hmm.
you got your GED,
Mm-hmm.
you went to college,
Mm-hmm.
and then you started entertaining,
Mm-hmm.
and then what?
And then I promised God when I was in college, I was still entertaining. Things were going very well. I was performing for some. Every time the biggest act would come in my city, I would open up for them. I began building the name in the city. But I promised God, I said, God, if you let me graduate from my college, I never graduated from nothing because mind you, I never graduated high school, nothing. So I said, if you let me walk across the stage, I'm getting out of Flint because I knew it was only so many places, especially with me building the name in Flint. It's so only high I can go before somebody to take me out. Or I have to take somebody out and end up throwing my life away. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So I said, God, I had
It's
this.
so sad that that is actually a reality. It's not
Absolutely.
just television. It is real life that things like this happen.
Yeah, because the more successful you get, I'm watching the guys as I was coming up that I looked at as successful get picked off. I'm watching it. You know what I mean? I'm watching, and again, when I had caught that case when I was young, part of being when I ended up going to jail, the God saved me. You know what I mean? Like that was a savior because so many of my people started dying. So even though they set me up, God preserved me. Right. So when I promised God that if I graduate, I'm gonna leave, I end up graduating. You know what I mean? And during this time, I was 21. I had the big car on the big rims, the Lamborghini doors. I had my own house, fish tank in the walls, all this stuff. I said, God, you let me graduate. I'm leaving this behind, right? So I end up around the time I knew I was going to graduate. We had a spring break. My last spring break, I did a tour because again, I always utilize my time. So I was like, if I'm gonna be on break, I went on a tour to make some money. So while I'm on tour, I double utilize my time. While we hitting these different cities, while everybody else smoking weed, going to find the girls, I looked at the cities. I said, every city we gonna go to, the morning I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna go visit the college, the university in that city, and I'm gonna go see what's up. You know what I mean? Now again, I didn't expect to get accepted to no college because all my life I'm hearing you gotta have SAT scores, you gotta have this. I didn't even take SAT, so I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm like, it ain't, you know. So we end up going to Houston, the first city we end up having to stop at, right? No, we stopped at Dallas. We went to Dallas, and I had a cousin that lived in Houston, right? So I said, and he wasn't my cousin, he's my little brother cousin. But I said, cuz I'm up here, I want to go visit U of H. He like, man, he know about my cars, he know about the rap concert. He's like, man, skip all that. Just let me turn out with you, right? I said, I'll tell you what, you take me to U of H, you can go to me with my next show, right? So he's like, if you get to Houston, I'll take you. I caught a bus to Houston, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I caught a bus.
Determination.
Yeah, I caught the bus from Dallas to Houston. I get to Houston, they pick me up. They pick me up at this McDonald's in the bus stop, right? Soon as we get to the college, we walk in and I get to asking them like, hey, what's the procedure to get enrolled and stuff? Just like I knew, they said, oh, well, we need to transfer SAT scores. You got to transfer this, you got to transfer that. And I said, okay. And I'm just listening. And I'm like, all right. And so I'm like, all right, well, thank you. You know what I mean? And I'm about to turn around and I'm like, well, you know, I just wanted to come find out because I just graduated with my associates and I was just trying to find what college I want to go to. She was like, oh, okay, you just graduated? I was like, yeah. She was like, okay, well, you're accepted. And I was like, all right, cool. Thank you. Nice meeting you. And I turned around and I said, what? I said, accepted. She said, yeah. And I said, how? I didn't fill out nothing. She said, no, well, we just so happens this year to implement a program where if you transfer with the existing degree, you don't have to go through the admission process. I was like, what? I said,
wow.
So we walking out. I'm happy as heck. I tell my cousin, I'm like, bro, I'm finna go to a university, right? He said, man, you ain't finna go here, man. I said, bro, I'm coming, bro. I said, look, if you let me stay with you for about a couple months while I get myself together, bro, I'm finna come down here. He like, you gonna bring your car? I'm like, yeah, I'll bring the car. You get what I'm saying? He's just worried about getting girls. So I get down there and I start, and again, at this time, I'm doing very good in music up there in Flint. You know what I mean? Everything's going well. So it really was a tough decision because I had to leave behind the life I knew, the fame I built, and go down there. So when I first got down there, it was tough. One, it was difficult because I left a house with fish tanks in the wall and my own personal studio I built in my room and everything. And I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with 6 people, right? It's my 2 cousins, my cousin, his girlfriend in this apartment, this one on this side, his homeboy from Flint and his girlfriend on this one. And then this one dude and this other dude that was from Flint that I didn't know. They knew of me, but I didn't know them in a living room, right? So me and them 3 dudes living in a living room together, right? Mm-hmm. So so about the first month, it was all right. It was kind of fun. It was like, you know, a frat house and stuff. But then it started because I'm going to school. So I got to
you trying to be focused.
Yeah.
You don't have time for all of that.
Exactly.
You're purpose driven. And that's the thing. A lot of people aren't purpose driven.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, it takes, you know, being disciplined to get to that next level.
Yes. And, you know, and especially when you're around other people that's not purpose driven, because you know they was trying to
stay in the frame.
They was trying to sway my direction in so many different ways, right? Because my cousin wanted to start a record label, one of his homies wanted to rap, so they like, oh, cuz you already popping, you already got fame, sign with us, sign with Duffel Bag, right? And like, you know, and of course, once I said I didn't want to sign with them, now it started to create a negative energy in the house, right? So now it's like, all right, and they didn't get the reason why I didn't want to sign with them is because my commitment right now was I'm close to being an engineer. My plan was to be an engineer first, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, let me do this real quick and then I got you. They thinking I'm looking at like they ain't cool enough for me to sign with. You know what I mean? Yes. So it started building animosity in the house, right? So it got so bad to like month 3 after I done burnt through my savings and stuff like that. I would come home and be hungry and I smell pork chops and this dude would take it on his side of the room and lock the door, right? And I'm talking about it. So that was one petty thing. Then I came home one time, this dude, like, so by then about 2 of the other people moved out. This dude cut off the power on one side of the house. I didn't even know you could do that. So at this time, I'm like, you know what? Now the temptations were there because when I got down south, I found out that it was a lot of opportunity if I wanted to take the wrong path. You know what I mean? Right. So I had to, again, stay focused driven. I had to remind myself, you know what? This is not what I'm here for. So what I ended up doing was one night, I remember like it's just that we were all sitting in the garage. Stacy, my cousin, all them, we was drinking. They doing donuts in the parking lot like some silly young kids, right? and it was this white man coming in through the parking lot, and he was walking up to the door, and I could see how he was looking at them. So I just kind of went over to him and I just said, man, hey, I apologize, bro. It's my friend's birthday. We just, having fun. So he said, it's okay, acting like that. And I just said, hey, so what do you do? And then when I asked him what do he do, he said, I'm in construction. So I said, hey, I'm trying to get an engineering job. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm still in school. But he told me, he said, go to this street and it's a lot of businesses there. So long story short, Stacy and AG, all these guys was looking at me weird when I was talking to this man, and they like, oh, you think you too good, whatever. But the next day, when everybody passed out drunk, I got up, put on a suit and tie. They're like, where you going? I'm going to Seaman Street. That man said his job's out there. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
So I go on this street, and I just walk up and down the street, and I apply for jobs and stuff. Right now, the company he told me about, this is a big old firm. It was Siemens. So he and I'm like, I don't got a degree, so they won't hire me. But I went into this other company. It was like a mom and pop, and they was like, well, we're not hiring for engineers right now, but we're hiring for welders. I was like, I will. You know what I mean? so I filled out the job. I went back home, told Stacy, hey, bro, I filled out a job. I was all excited. Once again, man, you ain't finna work. You know what I mean? They know from me from being in Flint, doing, you know what I mean, stuff. I was doing whatever. So then about a month passed, didn't hear nothing, right? I'm steady going to school. I'm steady doing stuff. So I'm calling this job, following up every other week. 1 week I called and I said, hey, look, I'll take whatever, because they like, we don't have an opportunity for you to work right now. I said, look, I'll come in there and I'll help. I'm like, look, I'll do whatever y'all need me to do. So they end up calling me back and asking me, can I do third shift? I got accepted the third shift job. This is how good God work, right? When I accepted that job, Stacy and them laughed at me. But then I keep working and stuff. I took the job working from midnight to 12 the next day, right? And I was doing this for like 3 weeks straight. After working at that job for like 2 years, why Stacy ended up working there? I ended up getting Stacy a job there. I ended up getting my friend Deuce. Every guy that was in that house from Flint, I got a job there. Do you get what I'm saying?
Wow.
I went in there and I built my worth. And the crazy part about the way I built my worth is, even though they hired me as a welder, I worked my way to become the engineer. Like, because I would tell them like they needed AutoCAD. Now, come to find out, they knew what they were doing, because they, right before they hired me, the engineer had just quit, but they hired me under a welder's pay. Right. So after about 2 months, they came to the office, out to the shop, and was like, hey, you know how to do blueprints, don't you? And I was like, yeah. They was like, come here and let me see if you can do this. So I started doing that. But I experienced a form of racism a little bit, because they kept telling me, they wouldn't tell the head boss who was doing this, but they was letting me do it. And they like, even though you come in here, one day I would come in with suits. One day this dude gonna come up to me and tell me, hey, I know that you're doing a great job and stuff, but make sure you bring your shop clothes, because you might still have to go out there to the shop. And I'm like, he telling me this in front of and I don't want to say white guy, but it was this younger white guy I was training. And I'm like, why would you say that in front of him? But he ain't got to go to the shop. You know what I mean? But I had two options there, right? I could have took that the wrong way, but you know what? I took that as, I said, you know what? Okay, cool. I bet you I'm gonna make myself so important, y'all can't afford for me to go to the shop.
Exactly.
So what happened? I ended up working full time every day, coming to work in the suit, right? And then, I ended up getting the proper pay I was supposed to get. But that, I don't want the story could be long, but to sum that up, you know what I mean? In Houston, I faced a lot of difficulties that it was multiple times that I wanted to be like, you know what, skip this, I'm going back to Flint. But I remember what I was looking at if I went back to Flint, and the possibility of what I could create being in Texas was far greater than going back to what, you know what I mean? Like I already made it from that. No going backwards.
It's amazing that you were of mind to recognize that you had entered a season in your life that it wasn't you were at the point of no return. I can't go back, because what's in front of me, I anticipate that much greater than that which is behind me. And that is really where I think the dividing line, the determining factor is there. Sometimes we don't move forward because we're comfortable with where we've been and what we have, and that sense of comfort soothes us into this lullaby state that really is no more than stagnation. And that's why people who are comfortable with being stagnant could always have a voice and opinion to you when you are trying to move forward. Why? Because their only experience is stagnation. Their only experience is their own dead end. So they figure that's good enough for me. That's good enough for you. You're not going to do this. You're not going to do that. And you have to have something in your ears loud enough to say, but no, where I'm going is greater than where I'm coming from.
Absolutely.
And I commend you, because the fact the door's open because you were willing to continue to move. The
Man,
doors open because you was willing to silence those voices in your head that
Hmm.
trying to tell you that what you can't do and what you won't do. And so for those that are listening who think that it's by some type of a lucky charm or some type of magic dust, the only magic dust is really being persistent and having a
Yes.
decisive
Focus.
mind that I'm going forward. I'd rather embrace that I don't know than to be married to that I've known.
absolutely. And God will reveal that. The universe will reveal that because again, the way the story ended up unfolding, Stacy became my biggest fan. The cousin that tried to make it is most difficult for me when I got there because I wanted to be an engineer first. Not
Mhm.
only once I became an engineer, ended up benefiting from me being an engineer, but then after I finished engineering, pursued my path in music, which was my ultimate plan, and really
Mhm.
blew up even bigger than I did in Michigan, he was right there with me at them video shoots. And man, cuz you did it, sitting in them Lamborghinis with me, and you know what I mean? And it's like I would look at him, and in my heart, I knew you ain't really believe in me, but at the end of the day, I'm happy because hopefully this motivates you and show you that at the end of the day, you know what I mean? When God got a purpose and you really believe, can't no man take that. Can't no man. I'm talking about it was times where I was in a situation where I could have lost my life, and the only thing kept me going is God. This wasn't in the part of the movie. You know what I mean? Like God, I knew it was difficulties, but this movie got a big ending, so it can't end right now. You know what I mean?
Right.
For example, I got this on my wrist. It's a tattoo. It says, "According to you, let it be." Wait, you say, "According to your faith, let it be to you."
Let it be.
Yes, and the reason why is because it was a time where I was incarcerated, and it was some stuff that I didn't even really do or whatever. But everybody, when you in jail, everybody a lawyer, right? And all these guys telling me, "Oh man, you finna be here for 15 years, 20 years." I started doing math. I said, "Well, God, you told me by the time I was 30, I was gonna be a millionaire. If I stay here 15 years, I can't be no millionaire from here." So no, y'all ain't right. This is what I had over my movie. I'm like, I know it look bad, but I don't know how it's gonna come out right. But that ain't the plan. You know what I mean? And I'll be
Mhm.
damned from me believing that, right? I started going to the law library. I studied up and I proved my own case and I won. And they let me out that night. God,
Wow.
I'm talking about the judge even said it. I had one of the worst judges in Michigan. She even said it. She said, "I don't know what your lawyer did, but really it was what God did through me in the
Yes.
you know what I mean?" And at the time, my daughter was about 10 years old. So to see her face, you know what I mean? And this again, so situations like that, when I dealt with Stacy, that wasn't nothing. You know what I mean? Like now the stuff I deal with, the little adversity I deal with, that ain't nothing because just like you said, I understand anything you go through, right? It's not about your current circumstance. It's about your vision of where you're gonna go. You get what I'm saying? If anything, I'm happy when I go through stuff because one thing my mother taught me is it has to rain in order for the sun to shine. And that was one of the things Swift told me. He said it can't rain forever. But on the flip side of that is when it rains, you know, some got to grow out of it. So,
Absolutely.
so by me, every time I went through a difficult time in my life, I referred to that movie again. This gonna be a great movie because the worse it gets, the better the ending gotta be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, see,
Absolutely.
people fail to realize that being a hero causes a price. You have to pay a price to be who you are. And a lot of people don't want to sacrifice. Don't want to pay their price. They feel that they see an image, just like you saw Swift Beats, but he said, okay, you got to put in the work.
Mhm.
It's not just going to fall in your lap. You have to put in the work. And from then you adapted that reality of this is what I need to do to get to the next level. You didn't just like lay down and say, okay, I'm going to sell some weed. You wanted to educate it yourself. So I tell people if you want something bad enough, then you start studying people that are doing what you do. If you can't get to school, you have to learn from somebody. And I often also tell individuals that, you want people to respect us, but we need to respect ourselves and one another.
Absolutely.
Why is it that we always have to pull each other down? Why is it that we always have to go after or try and kill one another because one is up further than the other? We have to participate in our own rescue, and that means back in the day, they held each other in locked arms and then they walked and they allowed us to walk this path we're walking right now by being free. And
Mhm.
because they paid that price for us to be free, loose the chains where there's no more slavery, why is it that we feel we must enslave one another?
Mhm. And perfect, you said it very well. You know, the key to it all is yourself invested. Like one thing I just thought of when you said that is a lot of the times, like for me, even though I chose to educate myself and to go learn a skill and to learn how to make myself valuable in the day world or in the
Mhm.
physical world, it's
Right.
just important. What I'm learning now at the age I'm at, it's just important for you to put that energy into learning yourself, to make yourself
Yes,
valuable in your mental world. Because here's,
exactly.
like it is very. I look at it and say, because a lot of people will go spend 4 years going to college to learn how to be an engineer or 8 years to be a doctor. I meet so many people and I say, how many years of your life you took learning you? What?
Hmm.
Like, how many weeks how many hours a day do you dedicate to learning you and taking inventory of your emotions and your feelings? You know what I mean? And
Wow,
I had
that's
to.
powerful.
Yeah, and it's like, because, and if they say, oh, I'm too busy for that. So you're telling me, because that busy that you're saying you are you dedicating bettering somebody? Either you're going to a job to better your boss day, you're going to take care of your wife to better her day, which is good. You're going to take care of the kids to better their day. But how many hours do you take of not bettering, saying yourself, your mental though? And when I learned that, it helped me so much because it helped me understand because all right, so being a hero, right? And like I gave the talk at the Orlando Master Mike, you know what I mean? When I talked about I always thought my superpower was saying, I'm gonna show you, right?
Yes,
You
yes.
know, and once I learned to take inventory of my emotion and be emotional intelligent, I learned that okay, I don't have to show you, I can show myself because what really creates that fuel in me to show you is how I'm saddened by what you did to me.
Mm,
You know what I mean? And often, half the time, you didn't even do nothing to me. You just did what you do, right? But I took
Right.
offense to that because I took it as like you said earlier, and this is the point that me being young, being with my child's mother, I just needed to feel love, and it wasn't feel love. I needed to feel somebody believed in me
mm-hmm,
because growing up, my mother and the people didn't, besides Swift, didn't really give me the assurance I need to feel like, oh, you're gonna be great, right?
mm-hmm,
So by me living with my daughter's mother, she believed in me. She seen me as handsome. I was overweight at the time, you know what I mean? She seen me as clean. I was dirty, you know what I mean? So for that, I needed somebody to see me for that. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
that's my drive to keep going. So it's like now I understand that when people do not say turn their back on me, when people do whatever they do to better themselves, it's not turning their back on me or abandoning me because they don't believe in me. It's doing what they need to do for themselves, right? But I used to say, I'm gonna show you because you left me. Who will lead the next Les Brown? Who will lead the next Jay-Z? You get what I'm saying? But it took for me to understand my own emotions to see that I can still use. For a while too, I was afraid to really acknowledge that because I said, what if I acknowledge what made me feel the way I feel? They say I'm a show,
Mm,
and what if that made me lose my superpower? What if I stop
right.
being able to be? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
we always fear what we don't understand.
Yes, we feared that if I change myself, I'm gonna change my drive. You know what I
Mm-hmm,
mean? But once again, once I put a dedicated time to learn myself, I learned that my drive really never came from having to show somebody because I thought they was gonna leave me. My drive came from, well, first of all, I shouldn't even need it. My daughter's mother, I shouldn't need people to validate who I know I'm gonna be. I know that God chose me to be a vessel. I know that my path was destined before I was even put on this earth, and I can see from all the signs that He's done in my life. You know what I mean? So for me to feel like I gotta show you, you know what I mean? I'm playing myself. I'm limiting my power. You know what I mean? Like so now I feel so free now that like, for example, in some business things, I'm going through things with some business partner stuff and go right and stuff. But instead of me feeling angry and using that, all right, I'm gonna show you. Now I'm like, I'm at peace. I'm showing myself that I'm gonna continue on my path. You feel me? So now I'm still driven and I'm still happy, but I don't have any. I'm not holding on to the energy of a negative energy. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
I'm not holding on to I'm doing it to show you. You know what I mean? And it's just so
mm-hmm.
much of a better feeling. So like I just touch on the point of saying that when we give that time to learn ourselves and to kind of watch our own movie. You know what I mean? Look back at your life and watch the movies from a third perspective and say, "Dang, bro, you really was tripping because your feelings was hurt." That's
Well,
really why.
it's human nature to always want to be validated. And that's why, from the time and the moment we're born, as newborns, they cling to that mother, they cling to that father, the
Yeah.
smell of them. They rely on that. And then when that's ripped away, they spend their whole life trying to recapture that moment that they felt that love, they felt that warmth, they felt that protection. So it is a human nature to be validated so that we can walk out our purpose. But a lot of times we don't get that. So tell us about your clothing line.
Okay, so my clothing line is this right here. What I'm wearing is called Blessed and Beastie, and what it is it came from me saying, well, the slogan Blessed and Beastie came because I went to the tattoo shop and I wanted the "and" in the middle of my chest, and I was like, I need something to sound good with and I said I'm blessed and I'm a beast, but blessed come from this aspect. So blessed come from the aspect of just saying I'm blessed to be here. You know what I mean? Because being alive is a gift. You know what I mean? Like not only being alive, but being having the ability to observe the moment, to take in the now. Like as far as we know, other creatures they might be here, but they don't take in the now like humans do. So you blessed to be able to do that, right? Regardless of your religion. Beastie means don't just be blessed to be here, but take that and do something with it. Now I have a purpose. Now I'm here for a reason. You know what I'm saying? So like I just put that together, Blessed and Beastie, and created my little brother. Honestly, I created the clothing line out of it because my brother wanted to do something, and me being an entrepreneur, I'm like, look, he sketched up a drawing. I said, let's turn it into a clothing line. So that's what we
That's
did.
awesome. So the website for that is?
Blessedandbeastie.com right there below.
Okay. So, and how can individuals connect with you, follow you?
They can follow me on Is David Pablo on Instagram. You can also follow some of my business pages. If you go to Is David Pablo, you'll see a lot of different ways to connect with me.
Okay, so Deonte Atkins, stage name is David Pablo.
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay, so we want to clear that up for the listening audience. So when they try to find you, they know they're looking for David Pablo. That is your stage name.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So
Okay.
what's next for you, David?
What's next for me is I recently just did a bunch of partnerships with some bigger brands. I created a product out of COVID in a business that's doing well. I got it patented, and it's looking to be disruptive to a certain industry. And so not only that, but continuing to build on my speaking craft. And I
Yes,
have
because you're a motivational speaker as well. So when you go out to speak to different organizations, what is your prime target audience that you like addressing, given your background?
for me, I'm an energy person, so any my target audience is really hungry people. Kind of like my target audience is anyone who is eager to be to better themselves. You know what I mean? It don't even have to necessarily be in business. It doesn't have to be in health. It's just anyone who wants to better themselves. And the reason why I say that is because I would rather speak to people who want to better themselves, so they have an open mind, rather than people that you have to convince to better themselves. And I don't mind doing that. But my thing is I would rather talk to those who at least have the hunger to say, you know what, I want to do better. Because that's what it took for me.
That is awesome. This has been a great show. Is the hour went by so quickly, but your wealth of information, and I trust and hope that individuals will follow you because you have so much more in you. You have so much more to share to empower individuals, and I'm just hoping that they take advantage of the nuggets you dropped tonight on this show.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, man. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, so you can follow him on Instagram at it's David Pablo.
Yep.
It's David Pablo. And look at his clothing line, blessedandbeastie.com. So any closing remarks for us, David?
I would just say my closing remarks would be I appreciate everyone. Thank y'all for your time. Thank y'all for listening. And my goal on this earth is, not to be the greatest, but to try to walk in the path to become great, but inspire the next person who will be great. So like no matter who heard me out here today, if it's something that you relate to, just pursue your purpose. And one day you're gonna say, I'll be dang.
Well, I'm so proud of you, and you continue to thrive and strive for greater things.
Thank
Dr.
you.
J,
Hey, we've been very honored to have you tonight. Your persistency is to be
yes,
commended. Uh, I did a seminar before coming on tonight dealing with raising resilient children. And
Mm,
resiliency is the ability to adapt, to overcome things, to
mm,
recover from things. And that's what kept you going. your ability to be resilient, to not put a period where it was only a comma necessary. It
Mm,
wasn't a dead end for you. It was just a matter of a moment to transition to make
mm,
the next move. And it just looked like everything unfolded for you. Things like your welding and the things that you had grabbed tools and had up under your belt, it came along at the right time when there seemed to be a dead end somewhere. No, you was able to go in that tool belt and pull out what you needed. And that is something that I think is commendable, as we see so many that pursue their dreams. And
mhm.
they oftentimes see delays as being denials. They see, if you would, detours as being dead ends. But you have proven that through your persistency, that that doesn't have to be the outcome. I love the way that you look at it. Man, we are writing our story every day. Yes,
Yes,
we are.
yes,
You know
sir.
what? And we just want to have a good book to be able to read. And when
That's
we can reflect over our lives and say, man, that wasn't a bad chapter at all, it is something that's encouraging. So
yeah.
I commend you, and definitely continue Godspeed as you move forward.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, David, I am so glad that you didn't allow fear to overpower you to get to this next level of greatness that you embarked upon. And I wish you much success in this new venture you're getting ready to walk through. And I look to see you on television and on
Absolutely.
you're blowing up on YouTube and all that. So I'm so glad you didn't allow fear to overpower you and overtake you. Marion Williamson says that our deepest fears, not that we're inadequate, we feel that we're so small that we can't get to the next level, but our deepest fear that we're more powerful beyond measure. And
Mhm.
that's because there's so much greatness that we see that we're so overpowered by that that it causes us to fear that we can't reach that pinnacle. But he said, because if we reach that, we'll be more powerful than ever. And I thank you so much for pressing towards that mark. Thank you for joining us on Hot Topics from the Soul. If this show has been a blessing, pass it along and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Hot Topics from the Soul YouTube channel. And please visit our website, www.fromthesoulofAwoman.com and www.jrthicklin.com. And by all means, please visit the website and get the apparel, www.blessedandbeastie.com. We're
Yep.
here because you're here. Yes,
Last
David.
so to fear is to avoid fear. So like you were saying, people fear things and stuff, and they don't move to the fear. The biggest quote that I always kept in my mind is in the Bible says, "To fear is to void faith." That means even if you got $1 million check, the moment you fear is voided. You can't even cash it. So why fear when you might as well walk in that bank with that check and give yourself a chance to cash it?
Wow, that's powerful. So fear voids the check.
Yes, and it says in the Bible, to fear is to void faith. It didn't say it's to disturb. It said void.
Yes.
Wow.
Ooh, love the nuggets. Love
Absolutely.
the nuggets. This has been great. So pass this show along if it's been a blessing, especially to those that are struggling with their identity and struggling with their next
Absolutely.
level. So please forward this. And again, we're here because you're here. See you next week on Hot Topics from the Soul. Good night and God bless.
Good
Thank
night.
you.